This is Atlantic Motorsport Park in Shubanaki, Nova Scotia, site of the Rothmans Motor Plant Atlantic Superbike National, presented by Castrol Canada. Hello everybody, I'm Pat Gonzalez and welcome to round number 2 of Canada's National Superbike Series. With me is Craig Hill, and Craig, you're no stranger to this twisty 1.6-mile Atlantic Motorsport Park circuit.
Oh, for sure, Pat. As a matter of fact, I was here the very first day that they put the pavement down. And as a matter of fact, myself and Bob Hanna from the CASC painted the yellow lines on this racetrack. And you know, I've raced here both in the wet and I've raced here in the cold and damp like it is today. And you know, these guys today are faced with some very special problems, because what happens on this racetrack is that the puddles lay in little groups all the way around the racetrack. So when these guys are going around there very fast, and if the rain picks up again, there'll be all these little puddles that not only will they have to stay clear of, but they got to be careful of, because if they're on the outside line or something like that, they hit one and zip, the bike's gone from underneath them. But we've got good riders here. They've had a great practice day, and it looks as though all the records are going to fall wet or dry, Pat.
Well, some of the riders have already had their problems here at Atlantic Motorsport Park. Steve Dick, number 101, crashed his Suzuki Superbike in an early morning warm-up session, and he's been repairing that as well as running other qualifying heats. The Pro 750cc production qualifying heat was an outstanding one, as Steve Dick and Tommy Douglas dueled for 5 laps, with Steve Dick coming out the winner and taking the pole position and the 2 extra championship points. Steve Dick was unable to repair his Superbike for the qualifying race, and thus pitted his production machine against the Superbikes of McMurder, Goodfellow, Douglas Mercier, and McMillan. Almost unbelievably, Steve Dick led the first lap, but it wasn't long before the awesome Honda power of Ruben McMurder's Superbike came through into the lead, with Gary Goodfellow right behind in second. McMurder won the qualifier. He'll sit on the pole position and picked up those 2 valuable championship points.
That's right, Pat. And yesterday was a great day for Ruben McMurder and Steve Dick. And to date, our national point standings after our first round at Saint-Air look like this. Ruben McMurder has 17, Steve Dick has 12, Tommy Douglas 10, Norm Murphy 8, and then the rest down to Leclerc with a single point.
The opening round at Saint-Air was an easy win for Rothmans Honda rider number 24, Ruben McMurder, as he outclassed the field on his Honda 750 Interceptor. Paul McMillan, number 9, had a disappointing opening round as he came off in a big way at the hairpin when hit by Steve Dick while running a strong third. Defending Canadian champion Michel Mercier low-sided his new Suzuki in the bowl while running in second to McMurder. We asked the popular Michel Mercier if the setback at Saint-Air has changed his race strategy for the rest of the series.
Yes, it does a little bit. I came at Saint-Air with a lot of pressure, and right now I can say it's even more pressure. But it turned to be the other way. Now, because I have no points, I'll just go race by race and one at a time and see what happened. Because, you know, starting with no point after the first event is for sure not something that pump you up. So I'll just take it one by one.
Michel Mercier will have his hands full today, as Ruben McMurder has his sights set on that Canadian Superbike Championship. Some of those onboard pictures you saw were provided by this man, Tommy Douglas, on his Yamaha FZR 750. And this camera, the Sony Handycam. Tommy, having seen the pictures, are you surprised just how far you're leaning your Superbike over?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. The crew and I had a chance to view the pictures last night from Saint-Air, and we were just really amazed with it. It provides such an accurate perspective of the speed that we're able to attain and the lean angles that today's tires are able to achieve. With the Metzler slicks and the Pirelli production tires we have, we're really able to lean the bike over pretty far. And the viewers also have to understand when they're watching it that when the rider is out there and the bike is leaned over like that, he tries to maintain his head equal so that the horizon is always level.
Thank you, Tommy. We'll see how Tommy Douglas and all of the other riders perform in the first of our 2 races, the Pro 750 production final that's coming up next. You're watching the Rothmans Motor Plant Atlantic National Superbike Race from Shubanaki, Nova Scotia. Welcome back to the Rothmans Motor Plant Atlantic Superbike National. They're lining the bikes up for the Pro 750 production race. There's a lot of concern about the racetrack. It was wet earlier, it started to dry, the racing line is dry, but off of that, it's still pretty wet and slick. The riders will have to watch where they're running on this twisty Atlantic Motorsport Park circuit. Now here's Craig Hill.
You're right, Pat. I talked to Paul McMillan earlier, and he said there was about an 18-inch dry line at the critical part of each corner. And if they miss it, they're in big trouble.
McMillan with the wheelie as the field heads down into turn number 1. You can see 4-5 wide through that first turn. Michel Mercier, number 1, grabs the lead. 101, Steve Dick in second. Paul McMillan runs third. 99, John Ramsey. The local rider runs in fourth, and then back in fifth on that lime green Kawasaki is Miguel Duhamel. Pretty well single file through this section of the racetrack as Steve Dick tries to make a move up onto Michel Mercier, number 1. As the riders head out of this right-hand turn up into the roller coaster, it's still Mercier leading, Dick in second, McMillan third, Ramsey fourth, followed by Miguel Duhamel fifth, and Gary Goodfellow in the sixth place position. Steve Dick will take the lead here away from Michel Mercier as they got onto this twisty back straightaway. Steve Dick moves around Michel Mercier, and here's Mercier. He'll retake the lead as they come through turn number 10. Steve Dick had the lead, but only for a couple of corners. It's Michel Mercier back out in front. Steve Dick, 101 in second. McMillan, number 9, now will move around into that second place spot. A nice move by Paul McMillan going into turn 1. He got around Steve Dick. As we watch the battle into the hairpin, number 1, Mercier, your leader. 9, Paul McMillan in second. Ramsey now has moved around into third. Dick runs fourth. Goodfellow up into fifth. And on that lime green Kawasaki is Miguel Duhamel in sixth. But the riders have been swapping positions back and forth. Into the roller coaster here once again. It's Michel Mercier, number 1, leading. Steve Dick, number 101, having a war back there for that fourth place position as Gary Goodfellow works up onto his rear tire. Here's your leader, Mercier, number 1, as he starts to stretch it out just a little bit. Part of the great crowd here at Atlantic Motorsport Park watching a great Pro 750 production race. The front-running 6 riders are tied together as they come out of the final turn. Back up across the start-finish line. Mercier, your leader, 9, McMillan in second. 101, Steve Dick has now worked his way back into the third place spot. Mercier here on the Suzuki, McMillan on the new Honda RC30, then Dick on another Suzuki, and side by side for fourth. Goodfellow and Ramsey banging fairings as they run it out of the hairpin. And Gary Goodfellow will hold on to that fourth place position. And around the outside of Ramsey, it'll be Duhamel into the fifth place spot. Craig, we are seeing an incredible battle here aboard these production machines.
Oh, you bet, Pat. You got to remember, Gary Goodfellow's up on his production 600 bike. He's not riding his RC30 in this one, and he's doing a fantastic job of staying up there.
Gary showing a little bit of lack of horsepower there on the back section of the racetrack. He's not quite able to stay with Duhamel's 750 Kawasaki, and consequently has dropped back a spot. There is Paul McMillan holding on to that second place position, but boy, you could see the suspension on his Honda RC30 working through that bumpy section of the racetrack. 101, Dick in second, Duhamel on that green machine up into the fourth place spot, and here's Duhamel and Dick side by side into the bottom of turn 1, and Dick just would not let Duhamel get by number 11, Goodfellow, right there in the fifth place spot. The riders again out of the hairpin. You can see the interval, just a matter of a couple of bike lengths separating these 5 riders. As they head out through turn number 3, it's still 1, Michel Mercier leading. Number 9, Paul McMillan in second. Oh, and McMillan has crashed. McMillan goes sliding off the racetrack.
And that's just what Paul was talking about before this race, Pat. Here's a slow motion of that fall, and if you look, he just got a little bit off the line there, grabbed the front brake, and look at the spray coming off his wheels there.
That's got to be a bitter disappointment for Paul McMillan because he was running a superb race in second. That's Miguel Duhamel, son of past Canadian champion Bon Duhamel, running down Steve Dick for second. And I asked him if having his father on the team was a bonus.
Well, sometimes it gives you a plus. Sometimes it's a disadvantage because you got to live up to the reputation of Duhamel, you know. And it's always hard now. It's the hardest even with my brother and all that. So I just try not to mind it. He's a big hand, yeah. He gives me a good hand, you know. He says I gotta go faster. That's what I try to do.
Well, Miguel Duhamel trying to go just a little bit faster here and close on Steve Dick for that second place position. Gary Goodfellow right behind in the fourth place spot. Then John Ramsey in fifth. There you can see your top 5. And then back in sixth, it's Clyde McDonald, Ruben McMurder in seventh, Tommy Douglas, Michael Griffiths, and then Denny Royer. You're looking at the battle for 11th. Jean Paquette, number 7, just ahead of Dwight McKinley, the Winnipeg, Manitoba rider, and Mark Green.
Well, it's interesting, Pat, to see how far back McMurder and Douglas are running. You know, local knowledge of this track. When it's wet, must have an awful lot to do with it, I'm sure, but maybe they just don't have the right tire combination.
A rider with the right combination there is Gary Goodfellow as he tries to chase down Miguel Duhamel, and you're looking at a four-way battle for the third place spot. Miguel Duhamel on the green machine holds that third place position right now. Goodfellow, number 11, right behind him, then John Ramsey, and then Clyde McDonald. So the two Nova Scotia riders really giving Duhamel all he can handle here for third.
And there's the last lap flag out, Pat, and that's Norm Murphy on the Kawasaki. And you know, he hasn't quite come to terms with this bumpy, twisty circuit either. And you know, Norm's the kind of guy who gets on and goes fast. I don't understand it.
There is number 99, John Ramsey, to the outside of Gary Goodfellow, side by side out of the hairpin. And Goodfellow will hold on to fourth. Ramsey right there in fifth, and Clyde McDonald runs in the sixth place spot. Mercier, number 1, your leader, 101. Steve Dick in second, 97. Duhamel third, and there is Clyde McDonald going inside of Ramsey. He'll pick up the fifth place spot as he tries to chase down Gary Goodfellow now for fourth. Less than a lap to go. Michel Mercier, the leader. Further back in the pack, Paquette still being hounded by McKinley, Mark Green, and Michael White for that 12th place spot. Michel Mercier, just a few corners to go as he works it into the carousel now for the final time. There you can see Steve Dick. He has closed it up. Number 97, Miguel Duhamel in third, and 106, that is. It is. Clyde McDonald now is up into the fourth place spot. Just one corner to go. Michel Mercier out of the final corner. He looks to the checkered flag that's out at the line. As Mercier brings the Suzuki to the stripe, he will win it.
And you know, Pat, that's going to do a lot for Michel Mercier's confidence. You know, he's had problems with his new bike this year. He's got it sorted out now. And there are the final standings in our first race today. And we'll be back with more championship motorcycle racing from Shubanaki right after this.
Motorsport Park in Nova Scotia. They're lining the superbikes up for our 15-lap feature race. This will be a test of rider stamina, as the riders will have very little time out there on this twisty, tight circuit. There are no long straightaways to get a rest. They're going to be constantly working up and down through the gears, leaning the motorcycles, throwing them right and left. Now here's Craig Hill with the starting grid.
Well, there's not too many surprises on the front row, with Ruben McMurder taking the pole position and Vancouver's Gary Goodfellow right beside him. Honda versus Honda, Pat. Beside Gary is Suzuki-mounted Michel Mercier, winner of the Pro 750 production race. Next to him, to complete the four-rider front row, is Montreal's Tommy Douglas on a Yamaha.
In row number 2, it'll be Steve Dick, Paul McMillan, Miguel Duhamel, McDonald, Murphy, Ramsey, and Paquette in row 3. Medallia, Robbins, and Griffiths make up row 4. McKinley, Leclerc, Kea, and Brunet. Pilon, Kowalski, and McLeod in row 6. And in the final row, Glenn Friend and Eric Biel. Riders revving the engines up, looking for the green flag. There it is. Mercier, Goodfellow, McMurder, and number 2, Tommy Douglas, dive into turn 1. And it'll be number 11, Gary Goodfellow, with the lead. You're on board Tommy Douglas' machine as he looks at the front-running 3 riders just ahead of him. That is Gary Goodfellow, number 11, followed by 24, Ruben McMurder in second, number 1, Michel Mercier third, then Tommy Douglas on the number 2 Yamaha. Opening lap, and the riders go single file here now, and it is McMurder on the inside of Goodfellow. He grabs the lead going into the roller coaster. Ruben McMurder has put the Rothmans Honda Interceptor into the lead, going around Gary Goodfellow. It is Michel Mercier back in third. Number 2, Tommy Douglas running fourth, and Steve Dick now moves up the challenge as the riders head along the back section of the racetrack again. The beautiful shots here from the Sony Handycam from aboard Tommy Douglas's machine as he runs back in the 4th place position, looking up ahead on the racetrack to the leader, Ruben McMurder, followed by 11, Gary Goodfellow, and Michel Mercier in third. The riders come out of the final turn now here to complete lap 1 as they're on the start-finish straightaway, and you can see the 3 riders running ahead of Tommy Douglas to the bottom of turn 1. Ruben McMurder by about 5 or 6 bike lengths. Gary Goodfellow right there in second, and then Michel Mercier, the defending Canadian champion, runs back into 3rd place spot. Through the slowest corner on this racetrack, that hairpin, it's still McMurder, followed by Goodfellow, Mercier in third, And rider number 101, Steve Dick, now moving up to challenge Tommy Douglas for the 4th place spot.
Well, it's interesting to see the power that Ruben had right off the bat, Pat. He sure jumped out into a quick lead. But, you know, I think that Goodfella's just sitting back there watching them because I know that these guys are going to have a good race today.
You just saw from the onboard camera Steve Dick slipping around Tommy Douglas to pick up that 4th place position. As Douglas being dropped back into 5th now, Paul McMillan runs in the 6th place spot. Some great shots here. You can see just how far over the riders are leaning these motorcycles through the turns as they come back up into the start-finish straightaway. Ruben McMurder, number 24, your leader, 11. Gary Goodfellow in 2nd. And look at this race for 3rd. Dick, number 101, Douglas, number 2, are all over Michel Mercier for the 3rd place position. And Paul McMillan now makes it a 4-way battle for the 3rd place spot. Then it's back to the 2 Nova Scotia riders, Ramsey and McDonald, as they battle for 7th. Michel Mercier being reeled in here now by Steve Dick, number 101. Douglas right there on the number 2 Yamaha, and then number 9 of Paul McMillan on the Team Champini Suzuki. That is a great 4-way battle for 3rd, but up front, it is still McMurder and Goodfellow battling for the lead, and they're pulling away from the 3rd place rider Mercier. On the back straightaway, that's a twisty, turning back chute here at Atlantic Motorsport Park. 101 Steve Dick working on Michel Mercier for that 3rd place position, and you can see that Douglas and McMillan have both closed up as well. You're on board Tommy Douglas's Yamaha, the Sony Handycam, providing these pictures as he is in the thick of that battle for 3rd. And there is Miguel Duhamel. He was running in about 8th. He's off the racetrack. He's going to try to get it back onto the pavement.
There are the standings, and I guess the way McMurder and Goodfellow are riding, I don't think Mercier, Dick, or Douglas are going to chase them down. One name missing from the top 10, however, is West Hills Art Robbins on the CRV Suzuki. Art's had his problems today and is back in 13th, Pat.
There's the race for 3rd with Steve Dick running with Michel Mercier. You're with the leader, Ruben McMurder, and I asked him if running with Gary Goodfellow would be a difficult task today.
I feel comfortable about Gary being there. I think that I can stay just enough ahead, but anything can happen. And being tough to pass here, getting a bad start and stuff, and if Gary's get a good start, I could really have to work if he got out front. We're only talking a difference of tenths of seconds between us. So making that up over 15 laps it can be quite a job. So I think you're going to see Gary and I at it quite a bit during the race, and I suspect Michel will be in there too.
Michel is in there, but he's involved in the battle for 3rd place with Steve Dick, Tommy Douglas, and Paul McMillan. A superb 4-rider scrap for that 3rd place spot. Jean Paquette running just ahead of number 87, Norm Murphy. They're running in 10th and 11th. Murphy and Paquette both off the pace a little bit here this afternoon as they work it through and into the roller coaster. Just 5 bike lengths separating those 2 riders.
And that battle for the lead continues between McMurder and Goodfellow, and I asked Goodfellow what it takes to pass a rider like McMurder.
Well, Ruben's running really well, and his bike's running really well, and of course it's a very tight, twisty track, and it's rough, and you can't afford to make one mistake. And if I'm behind Ruben at the start, then I'll be waiting on him to make the mistake. If he doesn't make the mistake towards the end, then I'm just going to have to go in there and outbrake him into the tighter turns and so on. Spectacular track to watch, this track. It's a lot of hills and undulations in it, so you can see a lot of good wheelies and bikes stepping out all the time coming out of the tight corners and so on. Need a lot of traction for this track, so it's going to be a really exciting race tomorrow. I can't wait.
The race for 3rd place continues to heat up. Michel Mercier just ahead of Steve Dick. You're on board Tommy Douglas once again as he looks at that race for 3rd place. They're side by side through the left-hander, and Steve Dick has taken over the 3rd place spot. Steve Dick moving around the defending Canadian Superbike champion Michel Mercier to pick up that 3rd place position. Tommy Douglas now will close as they head into the carousel. There you can see just how bumpy the track is in this particular section. The camera moving back and forth, a little bit of breakup on the picture, but superb shots here. You can see just how hard these riders are running the bikes up through the turns as they come up to the top of the hill. And there is McMillan going around Douglas. Paul McMillan moves his Suzuki into the 5th place spot. Rider number 24, the leader, Ruben McMurder, really hanging off that Rothmans Honda Interceptor. They have lap number 32 there, Glenn Friend. Gary Goodfellow to within 5 bike lengths. There you can see the interval back to the 3rd place rider, number 101, Steve Dick. Then number 1, Michel Mercier in 4th. Paul McMillan, number 9, runs 5th. And then Tommy Douglas back in the 6th place position. So Dick now starting to pull ahead Just a little bit of Mercier side by side for 7th between McDonald and Ramsey. The two Nova Scotia riders really going at it, and Gary Goodfellow starting to make his move. He's close to within about 3 bike lengths of Ruben McMurder. You're looking at the old Honda technology in that Interceptor, and here is the new technology, the RC30. Gary Goodfellow pulls alongside and takes the lead. Gary Goodfellow finally getting around Ruben McMurder. A bike length apart into the carousel. McMurder on the inside of Goodfellow. He shuts the door to retake the spot. McMurder appear to have the lead by just a couple of inches going into the carousel. Goodfellow puts it across his front wheel to shut the door and retake that spot.
Pat, Goody's been coming on McMurder for the last 3 or 4 laps, and he's right up in there now, and I'm sure he's going to hang on.
Side by side for 4th. Paul McMillan inside of Michel Mercier into the 4th place position.
And you're watching the Rothman Superbike Challenge from Shubanaki, Nova Scotia. Welcome back to Atlantic Motorsport Park in Nova Scotia. I'm Craig Hill with Pat Gonzalez, and we're into the final laps of our feature Superbike race here today.
It's been a superb race with the lead change putting Gary Goodfellow, number 11, ahead of 24 McMurder, and there's Paul McMillan. Oh no, McMillan has crashed his Suzuki while challenging for 3rd.
Well, he was going quick, Pat, awfully quick, and you know, I think he just got a little bit wide coming out of that last corner, coming onto the straight, and got into the rough stuff, and away he went.
Here is the race for 4th. Number 1, Michel Mercier, just ahead of Tommy Douglas, and Clyde McDonald goes through on the inside. McDonald riding the wheels off a stock production machine that he's running here in the Superbike race. That's a Kawasaki 750, and Douglas goes right back into the 5th place spot. They have been swapping it back and forth, but a great race for 3rd. You're with the leaders. Gary Goodfellow, number 11, 24, Ruben McMurder, and they have been this close, really, for the last 5 or 6 laps. Once Goodfellow got around, McMurder just would not let him get away, and there's the blue and white. Last lap flag out at the line. McMurder now with less than a lap to go to try to reel back in Gary Goodfellow, and they'll be coming up on a couple of slower riders. Just a bike length and a half out of the hairpin, and Craig, we're seeing a superb battle here between these two Honda-mounted riders.
Oh, you bet. They're both going at it really tight, and I bet you they've been bumping wheels out there all day today, Pat.
There's the battle for 4th. Mercier just ahead of Douglas and Clyde McDonald. And there is the 7th place rider, young Michael Griffiths on the Suzuki. Goodfellow and McMurder into the carousel now for the final time. It's still a bike length separating Gary Goodfellow and Ruben McMurder as they come up through turn number 10 now. Goodfellow holding him off. Just 1 corner to go. They're on the straightaway. The checkered flag is out. Gary Goodfellow to the line, and Goodfellow will win it. McMurder in 2nd. Here is Steve Dick, number 101. He'll bring his Suzuki to the stripe in 3rd. It'll be number 2, Tommy Douglas 4th, and there is Mercier. He will be 5th, McDonald 6th.
A great race with the win in the 15 Castrol Championship points going to Gary Goodfellow. McMurder's 2nd place vaults him into the championship lead with 31, and it's going to be tough to make up the ground on that London, Ontario rider.
Round number 3 will be from Shannonville Motorsport Park. For Craig Hill, I'm Pat Gonzalez. So long.